When people hear the term human sacrifice, there's an automatic assumption that they see this idea of the Aztecs or cutting out people's hearts, or some horror film where you have like She, the old Hammer horror film with Ursula Andress and Christopher Lee, where she's sacrificing men to She who must be obeyed by throwing them into pits of fire and lava and things like this. When we all when you hear in like in the conspiratorial world, when they talk about human sacrifice, it's usually very sort of hysterical uh, terms that mean nothing anymore, like the Illuminati, and terms that the people who promote these ideas don't fully understand what they mean. They call them Luciferian and satanic, and they haven't got a clue what those terms mean. But human sacrifice does exist. Now, before I get to it, because people in the truth in the alternative truth movement, the conspiracy world, a lot of them tend not to be very bright, and a lot of them tend to be polemic. And what that means is, I won't explain polemic. Look it up. And very dogmatic and very black and white in their thinking. So recently I came out and I said there is definitely something very dodgy about Pizzagate. And then the same people say to me, but what about the Hampstead hoax? You were against that. Yeah, I was against it because there's no evidence. I have a brain. I look at things from one to one. The final factor for me with Pizzagate was that the New York Times and other big media instantly rushed in and said it's all a stupid conspiracy theory. That's your giveaway that it's not. There's something dodgy going on. When Hampstead, the mainstream media didn't care. Why? Because it didn't exist. Always look for the reaction. Always look for the reaction to know what's true and what's not. Now, so that does I take things from one to the next. I'm not done as person as this polemic, dogmatic mindset where it's black and white thinking, where it's all this or it's all that. Everything is a false flag. Everything is an inside job. Everything is corruption. I take it from one to one. Now, just because I don't believe that the Illuminati sacrifice human beings in rituals and all this stuff, doesn't mean I don't believe that human sacrifice doesn't exist. Human sacrifice does exist. And yesterday in Germany, we had a classic example of human sacrifice. We had a classic example of human sacrifice. A truck was hijacked by two Muslim extremists who later on ISIS claimed to be behind the attack. They shot dead the young Polish truck driver, took the heavier HGV truck and drove it into a Christmas market. And as it stands right now, the death total is 12. It may crawl higher. Now, all the major media blamed the truck. They did not want to blame, and I still cannot blame, the fact that it was Islamic militants and religious fanatics, just like the attack in Cologne last New Year's Eve. It wasn't. It was the fault of the women being out on their own, not the rapists from the Islamic cultures who are the sex assaulters from the Islamic cultures. Now, when you have a situation where 12 people in a market have been killed, and they have been killed for a very specific reason, and that reason being religious fanaticism, you don't have human sacrifice in that context. That's just murder. Where the real human sacrifice comes in is the BBC and CNN and the other mainstream media outlets doing everything to try and distract from the real cause of it. Why? Because it gets in the way of their globalist agenda. So their globalist agenda is very much on flooding Europe with people from the Arabic world, is Muslims from the Arabic world, and anything that happens as a consequence of that that's negative must be played down. So therefore, the 12 people that were killed yesterday were killed by a truck, an immaterial object. They were not killed by Islamic extremists. So we have a situation where those 12 people have been sacrificed to globalization, and that's the human sacrifice part. The human sacrifice part is not the actual killing of them by these crazy Mohammedan fanatics. The human sacrifice part is the mass media on behalf of their globalist masters playing down the real reason why it happened in order to sacrifice to their god, which is globalization. Now, this is how the occult really works. So forget all your spooky ideas of Anton LaVey wearing a devil outfit and this kind of thing. This is how it really, really works. The occult is not always about the idea of, theater in these sense. Human sacrifice happens and always has happened by governments in order to appease gods. In the case of what happened yesterday, the god that they're appeasing is the god of globalization, the god of diversity, the god of tolerance that they've created in the last 15 years or so. That has now become a god. In the same way that when the French Revolution, they were chopping off all the heads of all the aristocrats, and then later some of the early revolutionaries, and they sacrificed them to the goddess of reason. And they actually went as far. Now, first it was the revolution, the idea of the French Revolution, and that didn't inspire people. So the next thing they invented was an effigy, and that effigy was the goddess of reason, which they actually installed her statue inside the Notre Dame Cathedral. So those guillotines were as much religious events. The guillotine was like a wicker man for the wicker man never existed. That was Roman propaganda, but it was that kind of idea. It was to sacrifice, human sacrifice, to their revolution, which becomes a god or a goddess in their case. And there's no difference between what the globalists are doing yesterday by sacrificing people to globalization, by playing down the real reason for the slaughter, and that of the Aztecs priest cutting out the heart of a person on top of the pyramid in order to maintain the population, to integrate it. It's the same thing. It was just there was the God. That we no longer have individuals like emperors who are gods. We have ideas. We now live in the age of the idea being the god or the goddess. And that's how it's been since the Enlightenment. But globalization, because it's not grounded in anything humanistic, is a black sorcery god. Globalization is not rooted in the idea of anything human. It's rooted in the idea of things such as efficiency, economy, and wealth. It's not rooted in the idea of human happiness. It's rooted in the idea of protecting the aristocratic and upper echelons of society, the billionaires, and also down below that, the sort of middle level, the bureaucrats, the technocrats, the oligarchs, the plutocrats. And these are the priest class, and above them is the kind of the super priest class, the living gods, the likes of the billionaires, the top celebrities, the royal families, and so on. So what happened in Berlin yesterday was a sacrifice. Now there's another aspect to prove to you that this is about human sacrifice, and is this phenomenon that's appeared on Facebook ever since the Paris attacks at, I'm not sure if it was the one that took place at the Bataclan or the Charlie Hebdo, but it was one of the other. Facebook released a new feature on their pages where anyone who lives in the immediate area, they mark being safe at the moment. And so yesterday, I have quite a few people. I'm well past the 5,000 limit on my Facebook friends list, and I have thousands of followers. But I'm seeing the so and so in Berlin is safe. So and so in Berlin is safe. And on the surface, that seems like a good thing, and it is a good thing, so families don't have to worry. That's the good thing. But it's on the bad side of that, the dark sorcery of that is that what we're really seeing is the creation of a new norm. The new normal is not for people to want their governments and their bureaucrats and their globalists to do something about being attacked by religious fundamentalists. Instead, you're given an app or a feature on Facebook to say, "I'm still alive. I wasn't sacrificed to the god of globalization today." And that's exactly what that means. So the whole thing becomes a relief of your family members and your loved ones surviving, not of the actual process that's being taken place on the occultic level. That's what the real occultism is. So please bear this in mind. I'm going to be making lots and lots of videos on this open source occult TV channel about what the occult really is. And I would like you to subscribe, share these videos around, because there's phenomenal and dreadful ignorance or hysteria and sensationalism about this kind of ideas of things like human sacrifice, pedophile cults, and so on. And the idea of these videos is to show you how the real stuff works. Often you don't have look, in the past a priest class may have worn a hood over their head and held a sword. Today they wear a black suit and they stand in front of the G7 meetings. These are the dark magi of today, and they're the ones sacrificing on behalf of their paymasters, who are the aristocrats, the billionaire celebrities, and the royal families that are still the most powerful entities on this planet. So please share, please subscribe, and let's get this conversation really going in the right direction, because they want you going, oh, Illuminati sacrifice and lizards and all this stuff, because as long as you're doing that, you're very easy to ridicule. But if you can sit down with your friends at work and say, yeah, look, it's just in a casual way like this, yeah, that they say something like, "Did you see the CNN website yesterday? They were blaming everybody. The truck. They were blaming everybody but the attackers. Even the truck and the dead Polish guy was more of a suspect than the two ISIS attackers." And then you can turn around and say, "Yeah, well, it's like human sacrifice or something, isn't it?" And then leave it at that. We're going to change everything with this channel and these videos. We're going to bring the true meaning of the occult to a greater audience in a mature, intelligent, pragmatic, prosaic, and reflective way. And that way we can, just like I did in my work with the psychopaths, we can start building a firewall around ourselves. No contact ever again was what I said with the psychopaths, but no more them getting into the magic circle that surrounds your mind anymore. We are ready for the new fight. Thank you very much, and take care of yourself. Don't let this dark sorcery bring you down, because we can defeat it. We've already defeated it with the mainstream media. They're dead and finished now. Alt media killed them, wiped them out. We can do it with this. All we need is clear heads and the truth. Just to show you a little more to this, add a little more to this mix, I'm going to include a video that I made a while ago on my other channel at the end of this, to show you that even though they may have cold, hard, analytical, and clinical ideas towards this stuff, doesn't mean that the actual, should we say, the gravitas or the the aesthetic of the occult doesn't come true. Although they used very similar techniques to get the United States into World War One with Edward Bernays, the black sorcery images that were not true of, say, the baby on the end of the Belgian baby on the end of the German bayonet, it worked very effectively, because that was a mind spell that went into the minds of the American public and stopped enough Americans from being isolationists in order to get into World War One. Now, the god that they were sacrificing that for was the American Empire, which began to emerge after World War One, and that's why the likes of Woodrow Wilson and these types of presidents were very much in favor of ending isolationism for that very purpose. They wanted a proper American empire to basically take over the entire Western Hemisphere. Now, when the war was over, they collected all the helmets of the German soldiers who were killed by the American troops, and they put them on display in New York. Now, have a look at this video I'm about to play now and tell me that these people don't dabble in the occult. They do, even if the initial impetus is not occultic in how they sit down and plan it. Shall we say, an occult kind of resonance always comes through to the surface, and they reveal themselves with acts like
We hear
this.
an awful lot about occult imagery and occult symbolism in alternative media. Most of it is complete and total nonsense. It takes things too far, or else it's a mistake that people make where they don't understand that there's some very clever people in marketing, in politics, in show business, and music videos who know that these archetypes have a very powerful effect upon the human subconsciousness. And this effect upon the human subconsciousness is what makes them work, what makes us remember them. That's not to say that the artists are Satanists or practicing occultists, or the people who make the video are practicing occultists. It's just that there's some very clever people behind the scenes who are aware of how powerful the image is. It's simply a way of targeting your subconscious. You don't have to be hysterical about it. I wrote a book about it called Anvil of the Psyche, and it shows you how this stuff really works. It's not as spooky as you think it is. It's a business technique based on communicating to your subconscious mind. Now, I said just then that not all symbolism is necessarily occult, but I'm going to show you one in a minute that absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, is proof of debt cult psychosis and occult forces in operation. And believe me, this is the most mind-blowing thing anyone in alt media has ever seen, because I'm not aware of maybe that has happened before, but I'm not aware of too many people doing this before. And many of you are your jaws are literally going to hit the floor when I reveal this image. In 1918, at the end of the First World War, the United States, who only fought in the last year of the war, came back victorious among the Allies. In order for them to impose upon the American population this victory in terms of a blood sacrifice, the Vanderbilt family, who owned the New York Central Railroad, got together thousands upon thousands of German soldiers' helmets, of soldiers who were killed, and assembled them into a giant pyramid in front of Grand Central Station. To make that even more sick and more occult-like, the Vanderbilts commissioned that at the top of the pyramid was Nike, the goddess of victory, although there is some contention that it may have also been Columbia. Either way, the eye of the pyramid is there in the form of a goddess of death. Now, it's a remarkable photograph, this, but it shows you just how symbolic it is. We had a line of 7 columns on either side showing different war goddesses. In the foreground, 2 cannons, and in the middle of it all, the helmets of thousands, many of them with bullet holes in them where the bullet passed through the skull, of thousands and thousands of German soldiers killed by the US military in World War I. Here I'm presenting to you absolute and irrefutable proof that occult forces in terms of debt cult and debt cult mentalities function within the upper echelons of at least American society. Look at this image and then remember that the psychopaths and the psychopathic control grid, this is the people and the kinds of minds it produces. And this is why we must continue to intelligently and non-hysterically expose them for what they are. Please share this video far and wide. Thank you.